Chapter 791. Orissa's brows knitted together. She stared at him and questioned, "Are you going to fight for their custody?" "Aren't they my children too?" Benjamin snorted. When he saw her pursing her lips and becoming annoyed, he added, "You can be with them all the time as long as you stay here." Orissa cast a look at him. "How long can I stay here, Graham?" Instead of getting an ambiguous answer, she needed clarification. "For as long as you wish. As for the children, they'll live here forever." He put both his hands in his pockets and stared at her intently. "Can I make this place my forever home too? What do you think?" Benjamin swept his gaze over her. Orissa blushed instantly as her heart skipped a beat. "What if you get hitched? Am I still allowed to stay here?" Benjamin's eyes narrowed a fraction. "Who am I marrying? I don't know. Ask yourself." With that, she turned and went to the dining area. By then, the children had returned from the bathroom. She ushered them to their seats. Moments later, Benjamin joined them. As he took his seat at the head of the table, Edwin handed him a hot towel to wipe his hands. Orissa side-eyed him. Why is he acting as if he's eating at a restaurant? "Wipe your hands." Benjamin passed him a towel. "No, thanks. I prefer to wash mine." Orissa cast him a contemptuous glance before heading off to use the kitchen sink. When she returned, Benjamin asked, "Isn't it faster to wipe them?" "Why should I do that when we're at home?" Edwin looked at them, all smiles. "Enjoy your meal, Mr. and Mrs. Graham." Nodding, Orissa sat down and started serving the children. "Let's eat," Benjamin requested. "Pass me the mushroom dish in front of you." Orissa's gaze fell on the dish and then at Benjamin. "Can't you get it yourself?" Edwin caught the hint and urged, "Mrs. Graham, I think Mr. Graham would love for you to serve him some." Orissa's face reddened almost instantly while the 6 children burst into giggles. "Mommy, hurry up and give it to Daddy. He's waiting." Gavin hummed with his mouth full, and it sounded as though he was prompting Orissa to give Benjamin a wedding. When she heard that, her face turned crimson red. "Here you go." She took a few pieces of mushrooms and put it on his plate. "Lovely. You've granted my only desire." Benjamin's gaze was intense when he said that in an ambiguous tone. Orissa turned and glanced at him but felt shy when her gaze met his. "Dig in." Afterward, they all started eating. "Don't keep eating the pasta. Try the other dishes too." Benjamin acted like a gentleman and served her more food. Orissa shot him a look and responded, "I know. I prefer starting with the main course." Benjamin chuckled lowly, and utter embarrassment swamped Orissa. Seeing how bashful she was, the 6 children promptly burst into laughter. Flustered, Orissa gave them a death stare. "What's so funny? Pay attention when you eat." However, her response made the kids chuckle even more. Not knowing what to do next, Orissa lowered her head and continued eating. Benjamin was absolutely delighted when he stole a glance at her flushed cheeks. Then, he turned to the children and said solemnly, "All right, that's enough. Go on and eat your food." The kids obliged quickly at his command. They also served their mother some food. "Try this, Mommy, and this too, Miss York." "Thank you, sweethearts." Orissa was over the moon. After dinner, Benjamin sent all the kids into his study to coach them on their homework. At that moment, Orissa's heart was full. "Mrs. Graham, why don't you bring them some drinks?" Edwin had prepared coffee and milkshakes for Benjamin and the children. "Sure." Orissa received the tray and headed to the study. When she got there, she saw Benjamin tutoring Tim patiently. Gavin, Zachary, Oliver, Jasper, and Jesse joined in and listened attentively to their father's explanation. They did not act proud despite having understood it already. Orissa smiled as she put the tray down discreetly and sat by the side. Chapter 792. Benjamin glanced at her and said, "Go get some rest. I'll tutor them for a while longer." Orissa nodded gratefully. "Okay, I'll go sit down." Benjamin gave her a look before turning back to the children and continuing to explain to them. Orissa sat down by the side and quietly watched the father and children talk. Her heart melted at the sight. "Do you all understand?" Benjamin asked, looking at the 6 children. "Yes, I understand, Mr. Graham," Tim answered. He was the first of the boys to speak up. "Me too," Gavin said with a big smile. Zachary, Oliver, and Jasper nodded in unison and replied, I understand, too. The last to answer, Jessie glanced at her brothers and Benjamin before lowering her head shyly and mumbling, I still don't understand. Benjamin was surprised. He had thought that it would be Tim who would not understand, but it turned out that it was Jessie. Benjamin pulled Jessie into his lap and asked, Tell me which part you don't understand. Jessie's cheeks turned bright red. She looked away from Benjamin and confessed, You talk too fast. Orissa could not help laughing at her answer. She didn't understand a single word at all. Benjamin looked straight into Jess's eyes and said, Okay, I'll speak slowly. I'll start again from the beginning, okay. Jess's blush deepened when her brothers all started laughing at her. Okay. Orissa could not help giggling at the sight of her blushing daughter. Mommy, you're not allowed to laugh at me. Jessie pouted. Her big eyes were welling up with tears. Okay, I'll stop laughing. Don't worry, sweetheart. Just listen to your daddy. You can do this. I believe in you, Orissa said, trying to cheer on her youngest daughter. Okay. Jessie flashed her mother a bright smile, revealing her tiny teeth and pink gums. Now, don't you make trouble here. Benjamin warned Orissa with a look. Orissa shook her head and said nothing in reply to his threat. Gavin, Tim, Zachary, Oliver, and Jasper burst out laughing. Embarrassed, Orissa stood up and said, Well, you continue tutoring them. I'm going to take a bath. Benjamin watched her walk away for a moment before turning his attention back to Jessie. He explained again carefully and slowly to her. Tim also sat nearby and listened while Gavin, Zachary, Oliver, and Jasper carried on with their own learning. Orissa cast one final glance at them before heading upstairs. Ethan and Jack appeared and caught sight of Benjamin tutoring the children. It was a rare sight, and they crowded around to watch. Benjamin glared at them over the children's heads. Seeing that look from Benjamin, the two men did not dare to further disrupt the children's learning and left to grab some food. Ethan, the sight of Mr. Graham tutoring the children is so strange. Jack commented. Ethan rolled his eyes and said, What's so strange about it? Wasn't Gavin also tutored by Mr. Graham back then? Jack glanced at Ethan and admitted, You've seen that before because you've always been with Mr. Graham. I've never had the chance to see something like that. The corners of Ethan's lips twitched. He sighed and complained, Mr. Graham has deducted my bonus this year. Jack's eyes lit up, and he asked in an excited voice, Really? Ethan rolled his eyes at him. Don't gloat over my bad luck, less your bonus is deducted as well. Jack grinned. Suddenly, I feel so much better about my job. Ethan groaned, Oh, shut up. He glanced upstairs. I wonder when the two of them will make up. Otherwise, it will be hard on us. Edwin was amused when he heard the two men's conversation. Haven't you guys heard? They have reconciled. Ethan and Jack turned to look at Edwin excitedly and asked, Really? When did that happen? They arrived home together, and I saw Mr. Graham holding hands with Mrs. Graham. Would they be so intimate if they hadn't reconciled? Edwin said with a happy smile. There would be no more tension in that house. Ethan's and Jack's eyes widened in surprise. Really? They held hands? Yes, it's true. Edwin nodded. Orissa cleared her throat delicately as she descended the staircase. Would you guys mind keeping your voice down when you're gossiping? You're putting me in a very difficult position. She had to remind them as they were getting out of hand with their gossip. Besides, she did not want their salaries and bonuses to be deducted any further. Chapter 793. Ethan and Jack smiled sheepishly. I don't think you're in any difficult position, Mrs. Graham. Ethan joked. Orissa threw Ethan a sharp glance and reminded him, You'd better be careful before Mr. Graham deducts all your bonuses. Ethan pursed his lips and kept silent. Jack, too, kept quiet. None of them dared to gossip anymore. Edwin chuckled. Mrs. Graham, come and help yourself to some fruits. Orissa walked over to Edwin and asked, Edwin, do we have any picture frames at home? The kind with a glass window. Edwin racked his mind, frowning as he did so. Well, yes, but how big must the frames be? Big enough to display a certificate. Orissa was not sure if Benjamin had already mentioned the matter to Edwin. However, the children only had several pieces of certificates. There was not quite enough to decorate the walls yet. Nonetheless, she had nothing better to do. So, she thought she would frame up the children's certificates and awards anyway. I'll try and find some, Edwin said. Then he turned and hurried off to look for the frames. Jack followed him. I'll go with Edwin and help him. Ethan glanced at Orissa shyly. Mrs. Graham, have you made up with Mr. Graham? Orissa was speechless for a moment. Why are you calling me Mrs. Graham too? I'm just practicing for the future. Ethan replied with a smile. So, have you two really reconciled? Orissa's face burned red. Almost. Ethan was happy to hear her reply. Mr. Graham must be in a good mood. No wonder he's helping the kids with their homework. Well, I'm gonna go help Edwin, too. Ethan quickly ran off to join Edwin and Jack to find frames. Orissa was amused by their eagerness. She popped a piece of fruit into her mouth before walking into the study. Benjamin was still explaining earnestly to their youngest daughter, but the girl's eyelids were already drooping. She rubbed her eyes in a way that almost made Orissa laugh. Benjamin, you've been tutoring them for almost an hour. It's about time for a break. Let me finish teaching Jessie. When Benjamin noticed Jessie's sleepy eyes, he sighed to himself and said sternly, Jessie. Jessie immediately flew upright in her chair. She sat primly with her hands on her knees. Benjamin's heart melted, and he softened his tone when he said, listen carefully. Okay, Jessie replied with a firm nod. However, once Benjamin resumed his lecture, she began to nod off again. Benjamin was speechless. Orissa was amused by the scene. Now he understands how I feel when I tutor her. Jessie only takes it a little seriously when Zachary and the others are the ones teaching. You don't have to waste your effort anymore. Benjamin looked at Jess's little face, helpless against her charms. He tousled her hair encouragingly. Okay, let's stop for today. We'll continue tomorrow. Okay. Jessie nodded happily, suddenly becoming energetic again. Zachary smiled, shaking his head. Mr. Graham, just give up. Your words will never make it through to her little head. Benjamin turned to look at Zachary. Why do you say so? Zachary shrugged. Children who don't like studying will always feel sleepy. Benjamin, who was an avid scholar, could not understand that at all. Daddy, we'll teach Jessie next time. If you want to tutor anyone, you should just tutor Tim, Gavin said to Benjamin. All of you should be studying together, Benjamin said. Gavin pouted. Fine, we'll study together with Tim. Orissa brought a glass of water and set it down in front of Benjamin. You're working hard, Graham. Benjamin threw her a glance. Orissa looked amused. Jessie has always been a little slow. You can't rush it. Tutoring her youngest daughter had agitated her as well, but over time, she had learned to be patient. Then she realized that Zachary, Oliver, and Jasper were much better at teaching their sister. So, she had given the task to the three brothers while she merely supervised. Sometimes, it was more effective for a peer to teach one another than for an adult to teach children. Benjamin snorted. Don't gloat. It's also your fault as her parent that she can't keep up. Yes. Orissa looked at the children. May I take them away now? Chapter 794. Benjamin sighed and waved his hand, dismissing all of them. Orissa turned to her children with a smile and said, Sweethearts, go bring all your certificates and artwork. We'll frame them up together. Okay. All of them were bouncing with excitement as they pulled out all their certificates and artwork. They followed Orissa out of the study. Benjamin watched them leave. Then he stood up and followed them. Mommy, where are we hanging them? Oliver glanced at the stairs. Here are along the stairs. Orissa looked at the 6 children, then turned to Benjamin. Benjamin was standing behind them with his hands in his pockets. Let's put them up along the stairs. Yeah, let's do that. Orissa nodded in agreement. Come on, Mommy, let's put them up. Jasper was so excited that he was tiptoeing and even jumping up the wall. Let's wait for Mr. Whitley to bring over the frames. Orissa said to Jasper. Benjamin took the artwork from Tim's hands and looked at them with raised eyebrows. He was surprised. He glanced at Orissa. I didn't expect you to have quite the skills in arts. Of course. I won plenty of prizes back in my days. Orissa said proudly. What prize did you win? Benjamin's eye bore down on Orissa. I wasn't good enough. I won second place. Orissa returned his gaze. Benjamin chuckled at her answer. What are you laughing at? What did you win, then? Orissa was a little annoyed. I didn't win anything, but isn't this too simple? Benjamin said in a soft voice, looking down at the artwork he was holding in his hands. Orissa was speechless. Miss York is amazing, Tim said on Orissa's behalf. He glared at Benjamin. Benjamin looked at his son. Then he looked at the name on the certificate. It was stated, Timothy Graham. You should write this name on your schoolbooks. Tim nodded. I know, Mr. Graham. Benjamin tousled his hair and glanced around at the other children. Let me see all your artwork. Jasper and Oliver proudly showed off their artwork to him and praised Orissa. Isn't our mommy amazing? Yes, she is. Benjamin agreed as he took in their art. Mr. Graham, look, this is mine. Jessie shoved her artwork into Benjamin's face. Benjamin took it from her and looked at it carefully. It was very creative. All the children's art was different, but they were beautifully done. What about you two? Benjamin turned to Gavin and Zachary. Gavin smiled sheepishly and handed over his artwork. Benjamin studied it for a moment, nodding thoughtfully to himself as he did so. Zachary, too, gave his work to Benjamin. Mommy helped us with this. Benjamin's eyes flashed for a moment. Shouldn't I be the one helping you? Why didn't you ask me for help? Well, you weren't home last night, countered Orissa, who was leaning against the wall. Benjamin huffed. No matter where I am next time, you must let me know, at least. Okay, Orissa said when she saw his serious expression. Edwin, Ethan, and Jack appeared with the frames. Mrs. Graham, are these the kind of frames you were looking for? Edwin walked up to her and showed her the frames they had dug up from somewhere in the house. Yes, these are the kind of frames I was looking for. Orissa nodded happily. Can you place them on the coffee table? Then, she brought the children over. From now on, the children's awards and artwork will be displayed on the wall along the staircase. All the paintings will be taken down, Benjamin instructed Edwin. Yes, Mr. Graham, Edwin replied happily. I'll move the paintings elsewhere. Benjamin nodded. He and Orissa then helped the children to frame up their awards. The children were overjoyed to be spending time with their parents together. Ethan and Jack had wanted to offer their help, but when they saw how happy the family was together, they held themselves back. After watching them for a while, they went over to help Edwin move the paintings. Chapter 795. What's wrong with this frame? Orissa complained, frowning at the frame in her hand. She had been trying to snap it shut for the past few minutes. Let me see, Benjamin said. He took the frame from her hand and fiddled with it. The frame snapped shut with a soft click. Wow, Mr. Graham, you're amazing, Jasper cheered. The other children turned to look at Benjamin. Their faces were bright with wonder. Pride bloomed in Benjamin's chest. It is the greatest joy to be complimented by children who are known for their naive honesty. Orissa laughed. Graham is amazing indeed. I couldn't do it even after trying for so long. Benjamin's eyes flickered. He leaned closer to Orissa and whispered into her ear, I've got more tricks up my sleeve. His lips were close enough to brush her cheek, and his warm breath tickled her ear. Orissa's face turned pink. He's teasing me. Oh, kill me. She glanced sideways at him and quickly looked away again when her eyes met his fiery gaze. Benjamin smirked. The two of them then turned their attention back to their children and the frames. The 6 children each hugged the frames, holding their certificates and artwork to their chests. Come on, sweethearts. Strike a pose. Mommy wants to take a picture of all of you together. Wait, Mommy, I'm not posing properly yet. Mommy, should we hold the frames in front of us? The children were bouncing about excitedly. Orissa nodded and said, yes, hold the frames out in front of you. Once the children had all settled into a pose, she snapped a few pictures. How handsome. The children beamed happily. Mommy, come here, let's take a picture with you. Daddy can help us snap the picture. Gavin waved Orissa over to where they were standing. Orissa hurried over to the kids. She stood behind them and wrapped her arms around them. Help us take a picture, Graham. Benjamin snapped a few pictures of Arissa and her children. He scratched his nose self-consciously and walked over to join them. "Help me take one with the children, too." He handed his phone to Arissa. Arissa smiled and snapped a few pictures of Benjamin and the children. "Mommy, let's take a picture together with Daddy." Arissa saw her son's pleading face and walked over to them. "Ethan, come over here for a minute," Benjamin called out. Ethan hurried over to them. "Yes, Mr. Graham, help us take a picture." Benjamin grabbed Arissa's phone and handed it to Ethan. Ethan moved back so that he could fit all of them into the frame. Benjamin wrapped one arm around Arissa and placed the other on Jess's shoulder. "Ready?" Ethan looked at the happy family posing before him. Joy flooded his heart. "Yes," shouted the children in unison. Arissa nodded. "We're ready, ready," Benjamin said. "I'm taking the picture now," Ethan said, snapping a few more shots of the family. "Show me the picture." Zachary ran over to Ethan and tugged at his hand. The other children followed close behind. Ethan knelt down. The children crowded around him as he showed them the photos that he had just taken. "This is a bad picture." Zachary's eyes were closed. "We look so good here." "This is a good one." "I look so handsome." Hearing the delight and pride in the children's voices, Arissa was amused. She called out, "Okay, stop admiring yourselves. Let's go hang up these frames." The children quickly abandoned Ethan and ran over to Arissa with their frames. Arissa and Benjamin led the way. "Let me do it." Benjamin was a tall man. It would be easy for him to hang the frames up at a good height. Ethan hurried over to them with a hammer and nails. Arissa took the frames from the children and handed them over to Benjamin. Edwin and Jack came over as well to lend Benjamin a hand. Benjamin arranged and hung up the children's certificates first before hanging their artwork. It was a beautifully arranged display. Arissa was surprised by Benjamin's creative eye. If she had been the one to arrange the frames, they would all have been hung in one straight row. The children applauded with joy as the wall display began to come together. "So beautiful." Chapter 796. "Nice." Ethan, Jack, and Edwin were full of praise. "What do you think?" Benjamin turned to Arissa and asked for her opinion. Everyone smilingly turned to Arissa and saw her giving him a big thumbs up, saying, "Very nice." All those present, including the 6 kids, laughed. Benjamin stepped away to take a better look, then nodded and gave a satisfied grunt. "Okay, time for your shower, my sweethearts." Arissa clapped her hands to summon the kids for their showers. "Come on, boys. Let's go shower." Edwin gathered the boys and brought them upstairs. "Why don't you also take a shower?" Benjamin told Arissa before signaling Ethan and Jack to head to the study with a dart of his eyes. He started walking toward the study, but suddenly, he turned to Arissa again and said, "Move your things back." Arissa blinked her eyes and shot Benjamin a puzzled look. However, she did not pursue the matter as she saw he had gone into the study with Ethan and Jack. "Move my things back." Arissa was hesitant about moving her things back to his room, wondering if he was putting on a show or serious about it. When she reached the top of the stairs, Edwin came up to her and said, "Mrs. Graham, Mr. Graham told me to move your things back to the master bedroom." Huh, Arissa was still undecided. Edwin smiled and added, "I'm going to move them now, Mrs. Graham." He walked off as he was saying that, not wanting to give her a chance to object. "Looks like it's a wasted effort on my part." Arissa rubbed her head in resignation, then headed to the kids' room to check on them. Back at the old manor, Darius had a terrifying look on his face as he glared at Brian and Susanna. "I never thought you would be so bold as to bully Gavin, Susanna. As an elder, how could you say such things to a kid?" He hollered while slamming a hand onto the side table, scaring the life out of Brian and Susanna. Susanna frowned in annoyance and defended herself. "What did I say, Dad? Someone must be trying to deceive you. I've not met Gavin for a long while, so how is that possible?" "That's right, Dad. We've not seen Gavin for more than half a year." Brian chimed in as he looked puzzledly at Darius. "It was when you were here last year. I would have never known you did such a shameful thing behind my back if Gavin had not recently confided in us," Darius said. He gave Susanna a stern glare and growled, Did you or did you not say he's a nuisance and not welcomed in the family? A look of guilt flashed past Susanna's eyes, for she had indeed said that. Brian turned and glared at her as well, asking, did you really say that? I didn't, Dad. Don't take his word for it. It has been such a long time, so Gavin must have gotten it wrong. Susanna decided to deny it. Darius grabbed a cup and hurled it toward her. The cup landed near her foot and shattered into pieces, startling both Brian and her. Do you think I'm not aware of what you did to Benjamin? Don't you think you've crossed the line by abusing such a young kid? Darius continued to roar at Brian and Susanna, who were trembling with fear. I really had no idea she did that, Dad. Please forgive her. She's just an ignorant woman with a loose tongue, Brian pleaded. Turning to glare at Susanna, he demanded, apologize to Dad now. Susanna's expression fell as she could tell Darius was not about to let the matter rest. She timidly said, I'm sorry, Dad. I shouldn't have nagged at Gavin. I'll be more mindful in the future. Darius could tell his son and daughter-in-law were not sincere. His face was grim when he said, you should be apologizing to Gavin, not me. With his harsh, piercing gaze on Susanna, he continued, I was wondering why Gavin started kicking up a fuss whenever he was about to come here after that day. We got so worried, thinking the little guy's condition had deteriorated. We would never have imagined it was because you actually bullied him. My poor boy shut himself up and refused to utter a word for days. He must be so hurt. I'm warning you, Brian. Stop your nonsense, or I'll personally teach you a lesson. Only an animal would harm its own family. Darius fumed at Brian. Brian and Susanna were rooted in fear, and all colors drained from their face. Chapter 797. I'll take note, Dad, Brian guiltily said. Get out. Darius snapped, still furious. Take good care, Dad. Brian bid Darius goodbye and hurriedly left with Susanna. After they got into the car, Brian turned around and gave Susanna an earful. Mind what you say, you stupid woman. Don't you know Dad dotes on Gavin? If you can't hold that tongue of yours and be mindful of what you say, then stay home. I was annoyed with Benjamin, and Gavin happened to pass by, so I just vented my anger on him. What good would it do if Benjamin gets all the wealth but loses his bastard son? Let's see who is the last man standing. Susanna was unrepentant. You had better not let anyone hear that. Keep your thoughts to yourself, and don't screw things up for me. Brian glared at her and added, give them a call now and apologize to Gavin. Brian was really mad at his brainless and tactless wife. You want me to apologize to that little bastard? Who are you calling a bastard? Don't you keep up with the news? His mother has appeared. Brian narrowed his eyes in displeasure as he recalled the missing person ad he saw a few days ago. Susanna had been on holiday abroad and had just come home, only to be called over to Darius' place almost immediately. Hence, she had not caught up with the news yet. Don't tell me it's that woman. Gavin is not done as flesh and blood. Susanna refuted. Brian snorted and updated her. His real mother has come back, along with a few other kids. Ha, so Benjamin's woman betrayed him and made him a cuckold. Susanna gloated gleefully. Brian gave her a scowl and said, those other kids are also Benjamin's. Are you serious? Susanna could not believe her ears. She clenched her teeth tightly in anger, furious that she and Brian tried so hard yet failed to conceive, but Benjamin easily fathered so many kids in one go. I've checked it out, they're sextuplets. They're attending the same school. There is even news on Benjamin punishing some of the parents in that school when they bullied his kids, Brian said gloomily. Sextuplets. And all 6 of them are boys. Susanna was extremely jealous of Benjamin. Yup. Brian nodded. His heart sank whenever he thought of that, as the existence of those children meant his share of inheritance from Darius would get smaller. Why didn't Dad mention the other kids earlier? Susanna was puzzled. How would I know? Maybe he was being protective of them. Brian sneered. Quick, give Benjamin a call and apologize to him. The frustrated Brian barked at his equally annoyed wife. He was worried Benjamin would seek revenge on them on behalf of Gavin. How could that little bastard tell on me? Susanna fumed. She had only dared to scold him back then because she had been certain he would keep mum about the incident. Brian gave her another dirty look and said, "You created this mess, so you better take responsibility for it. And mind that filthy mouth of yours in the future." Susanna was left with no choice but to begrudgingly call Benjamin. Unfortunately, he didn't pick up her call. Next, she dialed Gavin's number, and similarly, her call went unanswered. "They're not picking up my calls," she exclaimed. Just then, Brian's phone rang. When he heard Pierre's report, he went weak in the knees. "What's wrong?" Susanna asked anxiously as she leaned over to support him. Brian angrily shoved her away, causing her to knock against the car door. "Benjamin took away our project. It's all your fault," he howled. Susanna froze, thunderstruck. They had put in a lot of effort to secure that project, and she even got her own family to invest quite a large sum of money into it. "Oh, what are we going to do? All our funds are invested in that project," she wailed. Brian clenched his chest and quickly phoned Benjamin. Just like Susanna, his call went unanswered. Brian and Susanna panicked and immediately rushed over to the Graham residence at Yaleview. Edwin was notified when they arrived, so he went to report it to Benjamin. "Mr. Graham, Mr. Brian and his missus are at the door. They wish to meet with you." "Ignore them," Benjamin said coldly. He knew the purpose of their visit and had no wish to entertain them. Chapter 798. "I know you're home, Benjamin. We want to speak with you." Brian started shouting from outside the house. "Susanna doesn't think before she spouts nonsense, and I've already told her off. She's here to apologize to Gavin, Benjamin," he added. Orissa was tucking the kids into bed when they heard the commotion. The 6 kids immediately turned their heads toward the windows, curious. "Is that the one who bullied you, Gavin?" Jesse looked toward Gavin and asked. Gavin could recognize Brian's voice, so he nodded and said, "Yup." Zachary immediately jumped out of bed and said, "Let me go teach them a lesson." "Come back." Orissa hurriedly stopped him. "But Mommy, the big bully who was mean to Gavin is here." Zachary protested angrily. Orissa shook her head and showed her disapproval. They had not met Benjamin's brother and sister-in-law before, so it was best to keep a low profile and not get involved. "Your daddy will punish them," Orissa said. All 6 heads turned to her and asked in unison, "Why do you trust Daddy, Mr. Graham, so much, Mommy?" Feeling embarrassed, Orissa confessed, "I overheard his phone conversation. He ordered his men to take away a project from them, and that is going to hurt them a lot." The kids' eyes lit up as they crowed, "Serves them right." Benjamin heard Brian's shouts, and that handsome face of his became grim. He turned to Ethan and Jack and said, "Shoo them away. If they refuse, you can resort to forceful means." Noted. Ethan and Jack hurried out, and when Brian and Susanna saw them, they frowned. "Where's Benjamin?" Brian demanded. "Mr. Brian, please leave. Mr. Graham has no wish to meet with you." Ethan relayed the message coldly, with no hint of respect for Brian. Jack stood next to Ethan with his arms across his chest, staring sternly at the 2 unwelcomed guests. Susanna could tell Benjamin was adamant about getting back at them, so she pleaded, "We have something important to ask Benjamin. Why did he take away our project? We are counting on." Before she could finish her sentence, Ethan snubbed her by saying, "Why? I think you should know why. You bullied Gavin, so Mr. Graham is only teaching you a small lesson. Get Benjamin to come out." Brian shouted angrily. Susanna was in the wrong, but she has realized her mistake. "How are we going to keep our business going if he takes away our project? Our cash flow is going to be badly affected." He added, "Who am I to make Mr. Graham come out to meet you? You offended him, so you bear the consequence." "Good luck to you," Ethan said. "Mr. Graham has given instructions that we are allowed to use forceful means to make you leave. Do you want to leave of your own accord, or do you want us to help you, Mr. Brian?" Like Benjamin, Ethan could also be merciless when the situation called for it. "I dare you to." Susanna glared at Ethan and Jack, furious. As Benjamin's brother and sister-in-law, she felt Benjamin was out to humiliate them with such disrespectful treatment. Ethan and Jack gave a hand signal, and a group of bodyguards immediately came up and stood in a circle around Brian and Susanna. Brian grabbed Susanna, got into the car, and drove off in a huff. Gosh, what a pair of cowards. Jack sneered. Ethan stared at the departing car and instructed a few bodyguards to tail them before heading back into the house. Benjamin went upstairs and headed to the kids' room. Orissa was still there. "Why are you still up?" he asked when he saw the kids were still awake. "It's so noisy outside," Gavin complained with annoyance. "I've already chased them away, so go to sleep now," Benjamin assured him. They were about to fall asleep, but the commotion kept them up, Orissa explained. "I know," Benjamin said, visibly upset. He walked to the other end of the room and coaxed the kids, saying, "Forget about those people. Get to sleep now." The 6 kids obligingly lay down, but their eyes were wide open, watching both Benjamin and Orissa. Benjamin could tell the boys were curious about something, so he raised a brow and asked, "Do you have a question? Are those 2 your brother and sister-in-law, Mr. Graham? Why are they so mean to Gavin?" Chapter 799. Benjamin rubbed Zachary's head lovingly and said, "You'll understand when you grow up." It was not uncommon for prominent families to have infighting among the family members over the inheritance. To make things worse, Brian and Benjamin shared the same father but had different mothers. Orissa looked at Benjamin with a hint of sympathy when she realized he wasn't having an easy time with his family members. She was also worried for her kids, as those people were obviously going against Benjamin. Benjamin checked to make sure the kids' blankets were in place, then said, "Sleep tight. Sweet dreams," Orissa added. "Good night, Mommy." "Good night, Daddy," Mr. Graham. The kids chorused. "Good night, my sweethearts." Orissa smiled and responded, "Good night." Benjamin also softly cooed. Orissa leaned against the headboard and patted the kids' blankets in a gentle rhythm to help coax them to sleep. Benjamin did the same on the other side of the bed. After a while, the kids finally fell asleep. "Let's go." Benjamin tilted his head slightly and gestured for Orissa to leave the room. He turned on a nightlight for the kids, and Orissa couldn't help but smile at his thoughtful gesture. She quietly walked out of the room. Benjamin followed behind her, turning off the light and gently closing the door behind them. "You've not taken your shower." Benjamin looked at Orissa and asked. "I'm going now." She looked up and replied, then turned around to head to the room. Benjamin caught up with her and asked, "Have you moved your things back in the room?" Orissa gave him a side eye and said, "Edwin has already done that." "Good. You go to bed and don't wait up. I have some matters to attend to." Benjamin ruffled her hair lovingly before heading down the stairs. Orissa turned to him and blurted, "Don't stay up too late. Sleep early too." Benjamin nodded in return before walking off. Orissa suddenly felt hot on her cheeks, and she quickly went for her shower. Ethan and Jack were waiting for Benjamin when he came down the stairs. "They've left, Mr. Graham." "Good," Benjamin said as he headed to the study. "They were so arrogant and unrepentant." Jack fumed. Benjamin wasn't surprised to hear that. If they had a conscience, they would not have bullied a young boy. "Keep an eye on them," Benjamin instructed solemnly. "I've already sent someone to tail them," Ethan replied. Benjamin's eyes glinted in appreciation, and he told Ethan, "I'll restore 1 month of your bonus." "Thank you, Mr. Graham." That was a pleasant surprise for Ethan, so he thanked Benjamin with a big smile. "Mr. Graham actually restored a month of bonus for me. Seems like he's in a good mood. Keep it up, and I'm sure I'll soon get all my deducted bonuses back." Ethan was still beaming from ear to ear when Benjamin asked, "Any other matters?" He immediately reported, "Justin met up with Miss Adams, Mr. Graham." "Oh, any idea what they talked about?" Benjamin asked as he fiddled with his pen, his face betraying no emotions. "Miss Adams wanted Justin to deal with Mrs. Graham," Ethan replied. Benjamin narrowed his eyes and said darkly, "Keep an eye on him. If he dares to do anything funny, teach him a lesson." "Noted," Ethan answered immediately. Benjamin eyed him suspiciously and said, "You seem to be very zealous when it comes to matters concerning Orissa." "I'm doing it for you, Mr. Graham. I know you care about Mrs. Graham and would never allow any harm to befall her." Ethan was watching Benjamin closely when he said that, worried he might offend his boss and lose his bonus again. Nonsense. Benjamin chided, but there was no anger in his tone. Ethan breathed a sigh of relief and proclaimed, I'll definitely see to Miss York's safety and make the necessary security arrangements. Benjamin gave him a dirty look, then turned to Jack and instructed, keep an eye on Justin. Yes, Mr. Graham. Jack nodded and obliged. That's all then. You can leave now. Benjamin waved them off. Ethan and Jack gave each other a knowing look, then happily replied, yes, Mr. Graham. You have an early night. Benjamin watched as they turned to head out. A glint appeared in his eyes when he remembered Orissa had also asked him to have an early night. He immediately marched out of the study. Chapter 800. When Orissa stepped out of the bathroom, she was taken aback by the sight of Benjamin relaxing comfortably in bed. I thought you had to attend to some matters, she asked. Benjamin took his eyes off his phone and turned his attention to her, saying, I'm done. Nodding, Orissa went to sit on the couch and started drying her hair. Her heart always beat wildly when she was alone with Benjamin, a sure sign that she was in love with him. Suddenly, the towel in her hand was snatched away. She turned around in shock and saw it was Benjamin. He turned her head back and said, stop moving. I'll dry your hair for you. Orissa's hair was silky soft. Benjamin adored the feel of her hair and lovingly started drying her hair with the towel. He followed up with the hairdryer. Why don't you go for your shower too? She said. Benjamin gazed tenderly at her charming earlobe, and his fingers couldn't help but reach out to fondle it. Orissa shied away from him instinctively. Her heart fluttered and skipped a beat when he touched her. Benjamin smiled when he noticed her blushing cheeks. He bent over to lean on her shoulder and whispered in her ear, you're still uneasy. Orissa found his deep, rich voice very sensual. She gulped to calm herself, then turned around and smilingly asked, uneasy over what? Over me. Staring straight into her eyes, Benjamin tilted her chin up and leaned toward her. Orissa closed her eyes, her trembling lashes betraying her nervousness. Benjamin initially wanted to kiss her, but when he saw how obliging she was, he decided to tease her instead. He gave her a playful pinch on the nose and said, wait for me. Then he walked off to the bathroom. Orissa opened her eyes and saw him happily heading for his shower. She hid her face in her palms and blushed at the thought of her reaction earlier, hating herself for it. Oh, Orissa, you're already a mother of 6, yet you're still so easily aroused. Even if you like him, you can't behave like a fool. She chided herself as she stole a look in the direction of the bathroom. Next, she went over to the bed, jumped right in, and wriggled around. Oh, how soft. His bed is indeed more comfortable. Orissa couldn't help but smile like a fool when she detected his scent on the bedsheet. Wait for me. When she recalled his words, her face turned red again. She could tell he wanted to get intimate with her. Recalling how they nearly did the bashful act the other time, she glanced toward the bathroom and hesitated, wondering if she should go sleep with the kids or in the guest room instead. Don't you dare run away. Benjamin seemed to have sensed her anxiety, and he shouted out a warning. Orissa pouted and put on a brave front as she shouted back, who's running away? What's there to be afraid of? He's such a hunk, so what do I have to lose? It's not our first time anyway. Other women would kill for the chance to sleep with him. And it's good for your body and soul. Orissa tried to brainwash herself, but the longer she waited, the more nervous she grew. Sensing that he was about to come out of the shower, she had the urge to run out of the room. Just then, a short beep sounded from Benjamin's phone on the bedside table. It was a message notification. She had no intention of invading his privacy, but the phone was right in front of her. When the screen lit up, the message was clearly visible. The message read, I'll see you at our usual place, Benjamin. She felt a sharp pang of anguish, and her heart sank. So they're still keeping in touch. Benjamin walked out of the bathroom with only a towel wrapped around his waist. His perfect physique was alluring, but Orissa was not in the mood to admire his body at that moment. She lay still on the bed, trying to recompose herself, wondering if she was being too petty. Benjamin saw her lying motionlessly on the bed and thought she had fallen asleep. When he walked over to her, he found her sulking, looking depressed. He sat down at the edge of the bed and gently caressed her head, asking, "What's wrong?"